Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. The NBA draft lottery has occurred and the Dallas Mavericks have won, thus proving that there are no basketball gods that care in any way about karma or anything of the sort. We'll talk about all of the outcomes here, from the Spurs moving up to number 2, the 76ers keeping their pick and moving up to number 3, the Charlotte Hornets going to number 4. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What's this gonna be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? How are you? I've been saying that the NBA playoffs have been delivering, and tonight the NBA draft lottery delivered something interesting. Not sure how everybody feels about that something, but it's interesting nonetheless.
I'm like pretty blown away by the outcome. I mean, the reason we were planning on starting this at 7:45 Eastern time. Typically it takes me 20 minutes, 15 minutes to update the mock draft at The Athletic, right? Which is what I have to do before we go live on this for my day job, right? It took me 45 minutes to an hour to do it this time because of the way that the Mavericks moving up and the way that the Spurs moving up cascades everything down. This is one of the crazier lotteries that I can remember occurring. I am very, very excited to kind of talk through all of this, but let's just start with Dallas. I mean, look, we're all like kind of thinking it a little bit. Like the reality here is like let's phrase it this way. The conspiracy theories about the NBA draft lottery being rigged are not going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
After the fact that the Dallas Mavericks got the number 1 overall pick, a major media market that was truly in a disastrous situation after the Luka Doncic trade with their fan base, is going to immediately rebound with Cooper Flag. And that's amazing for Dallas fans. I'm so excited for them to get to know what makes Cooper so special. And we'll talk about that in a second, but we can just like have the conversation. I'm not saying the thing is rigged. Like, I want to be very clear about that. I'm just saying that like outcomes like this don't stop that conversation from occurring.
Yeah. I mean, last year wasn't like, nobody talks about Atlanta jumping to 1 last year, but they came from 10 last year all the way up to 1, which is, a 3% chance or whatever it was, right? And then Dallas with the 1.8 all the way up to 1. I think what's crazy this year is 3 teams jumped, right? So not just Dallas jumping, but San Antonio jumping and even Philly. Now, Philly's isn't as crazy, but still, like, those are all 10%, 6%, 1.8%, and they all happened in the same year. And so I think that's what kind of struck me was this many teams jumping. I was trying to look at some of the other teams, like Washington ending up at 6 was still their second highest outcome. Charlotte ending up at 4 was the big one, right? Like Charlotte at 12% to end up at 4 was one of their lower outcomes. So I tried to look at it just from like those numbers. Like my thing is, Sam, I just don't want to live in that world, because if I go into the world where the NBA draft lottery is rigged and the officiating is rigged, then I have to start to question, like, what am I doing? Why do I watch this if I truly think it's rigged? So maybe I'm naive, maybe I'm stupid, maybe I'm out of touch with reality. I will live in that world so I can enjoy what I do as an analyst and all of that, and just say, like, the odds were in a crazy favor of these teams, even if I don't necessarily love it.
Yeah, and look, to be clear, like, I have never been somebody that feels this way, and I still don't feel this way. I think that looking at sports through that lens is just a much less fun way to look at sports, honestly, kind of similar to you, where, imagine if every outcome was like this. Or if every outcome was preordained, it just makes sports less fun. So, like, I just wanted to acknowledge it at the top that, that is a real thing that is going to be said about this.
Sure.
It's a factor here. It's going to be a conversation piece. I do not think the lottery is rigged, to be clear. But now the Mavericks are in a fascinating position where I am truly not sure what they're going to do with this entire roster situation. Like everyone's talking about like, oh, could they do something silly like take Dylan Harper because they don't have Kyrie and then Dylan can play with Kyrie and all this stuff. I've seen some people say, a couple other things here and there. I think they're just going to take Cooper, to be clear. Like, I think that's going to be the reality. The more interesting conversation for me is what do they do with the rest of the roster around Cooper Flag?
Yeah.
Do they try and like say, okay, we're rebuilding and restarting this entire thing around Cooper. We're going to go out and we're going to trade Derek Lively and Anthony Davis. Maybe not Lively, but like we're going to go out and trade those guys in order to get some of our own picks back if we can make that work. And then just have like a real rebuild? Or are they just going to try and compete immediately with Cooper and say, we've got Cooper, maybe Kyrie comes back late in the season next year. We've got Anthony Davis. This makes us even more of a contender moving forward. Like we're good to go. It's really, I think, going to depend on like what their evaluation is of Cooper and what they think that he can bring to them day one from an NBA perspective.
I think it's also an evaluation of Kyrie and when they expect Kyrie to be back, right? Like, when do you think he can be back? How much can he give you? My mind went 3 different paths. The first one was they just try to play like ginormous with Lively at the 5, AD at the 4, Cooper at the 3, and just like go crazy with that. My next one was, is there a Mavs Spurs trade that they both can like for 1 and 2, where it's like, okay, Cooper's obviously better than Dylan Harper, but Dylan Harper actually makes a little more sense for Dallas. And I guess you could argue Cooper makes more sense for the Spurs. What could the Spurs throw in there? Like, is there something like that? And then the third, where I think is probably the most realistic, is do you trade Lively or Gafford to go get a point guard, a guard that can not only withstand the non-Kyrie games next season, but maybe even like what level can you get for a Derek Lively? Because I think it's also kind of funny that now this, I think, makes it more likely AD at the 5 minutes, like seems more likely now with Cooper there. And so then do you need Lively and Gafford and AD at the 5 minutes? I wouldn't trade both Lively and Gafford, but could you trade one, shore up your guard position? And is that like the happy medium, the nice place to nestle in for the Mavericks for the next couple of years? And who could that be? Could it be a young enough player that he also grows with Cooper Flag in the future? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's probably the route that they look. I think they're probably going to try and contend with Cooper immediately. If you made me guess, I don't know if I love that like long term. Like I don't know if that's the best strategy, but unless they're moving AD and Kyrie, and if Kyrie resigns, obviously he can be a free agent this summer if he so chooses. I would expect that because they don't have their own picks, they probably try to contend now. And I don't think they're going to be good enough to do so. And this is going to be kind of a messy situation unless they're able to go out and get some like real players surrounding them. You know what I mean? Can you go out, like somebody, for instance, brought up Anthony Simons to Dallas?
Yeah, I was just
right?
talking
like,
to somebody.
That's honestly like kind of an amazing idea to me. Like Anthony Simons to Dallas at this point makes a ton of sense.
But not for Portland.
Give up. Yeah, like that's the issue. Like I don't know what they can give up in order to get Simons.
I mean, you're not giving up one of the bigs, at least. I mean, I suppose PJ is somewhat expendable. I don't want to say expendable, but like is more movable. Like would Portland be interested in adding PJ to the Tumani, Denny, rotation? I don't know that.
I don't think they need that.
Yeah, and like, is that the best you can get for Anthony Simons? And of course, the bigs don't make sense here, right? Like, Lively would be interesting if they didn't already have Klingon and all of that. So Simon, that's the right idea to me. Like, I like the idea there. I had somebody throw CJ McCollum at me just as like this stopgap. Obviously, he'd be older. He wouldn't be a younger player to grow with Cooper, but I'm not giving up Lively or Gafford for, CJ McCollum on an expiring and an older player. So there's some interesting names out there. I haven't yet found the one I really, really like.
Yeah, I think that CJ is another name that makes sense. It's just like, how do you make the money work at the end of the day?
Yeah, that too.
Colin Sexton is another name that could make total sense.
Okay, yeah.
There are names out there that you can make work if you go get like a real guard to play with these guys in order for them to be like a real playoff team next year. I think that's what this probably sets for them, is as long as they can go get a guard of some sort, you can probably go be a real playoff team next year if you're Dallas.
Yep. No, I agree. And I suppose this does set you up to, like, I wouldn't have liked moving one of those bigs or PJ or a combination of Lively and PJ, whatever it is, in a different scenario. But in a scenario where you're now adding Cooper Flag, I'm very much open to that. Like, I do think this is the path I think they should take moving forward. The other paths are a lot more fun. Like, I love the idea of them trying out Cooper, AD, Lively, 3, 4, and 5 front line and just like seeing what happens. Just like, I would find it interesting. But I think the one that makes the most sense is whatever you feel, whether it's Gafford, Washington, Lively, combination, whatever, packaging those things to go get you a real backcourt guy. And again, I think one that not only, I would try to thread the needle of all of the above. Can run the stuff until Kyrie gets back, can play with Kyrie when he gets back, and can also build out with, I think I'd rather go the younger route of, hey, this kid can build with Cooper after AD and Kyrie are gone. I would really try to go find that. And maybe you can't get that for the names I'm talking about, but to me, that would be the best path forward for the Mavericks.
So I actually think the number 2 spot is more interesting now, league wide. That's the crazy thing. Like, Dallas wins the pick and, people are going to conspiracy theory this whole thing. I think it's way more interesting who has number 2 now. San Antonio getting the number 2 overall pick and jumping into that range and also having 14.
Because of Giannis.
There's the Dylan Harper of it all, with Dylan Harper, like, not being a tremendous fit next to Steph Castle and De'Aaron Fox, but also the Giannis idea of it, or any other star. Like, we don't have to necessarily like limit it to Giannis, sure, in my opinion, but like the fact that they now have this massive trade chip, they have the Wembanyama piece available to them, and they have like these 2 lottery picks plus Fox plus Castle. I mean, this is setting up for the Spurs now, regardless of what they do. Say they trade it, say they keep it, whatever you want to do, it is what it is. This team is now setting up to be like the force of the West along with the Thunder moving forward to me. That's kind of where this goes. Like, we'll figure out, do they try and accelerate their timeline, or do they try to, long play it and see what happens? But just with the sheer assets they have available now to them at their disposal, having the Dylan Harper pick, essentially, this is now a serious organization to contend with. And they were previously. They have Wemby, who was a top 5 player in the league until he got hurt. And they went out and got De'Aaron Fox. But like, this is now a seriously difficult situation for other teams to top.
Yeah, I mean, number 2, we talk about the value of first round picks and how they're not created equal, right? If, talking about San Antonio's draft capital before an hour ago isn't quite the same as now, especially in this draft. Even if they landed 3, I don't think we would be talking about it in the same light. And so I want to get that out of the way. Let's say they take the pick. We are both in line that they should take Dylan Harper regardless, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, like, if they're keeping the pick, yes, they take Dylan. If they're keeping the pick.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, neither of us are so high on Ace or VJ or Khan or Trey Johnson or anybody else to feel like if San Antonio is keeping the number 2 pick, they should take those guys over Dylan Harper. You would agree?
I would not. No, I would
Okay.
not take anybody over Dylan here.
Okay. So like that to me just speaks to the draft. We've talked about this for months now. And that just makes that like even the number 2 pick in our eyes is that much more valuable than even if they got up to like if they got up to 4, I don't think we'd be talking about this in the same light, whether it was trading it to Giannis or whatever, because I don't think it's as valuable. So it just
Correct.
them getting all the way to 2. I just live in the Giannis world right now because that's the news. It's like, okay, well, you can go to Milwaukee and start with Dylan Harper plus 14 plus, Steph Castle, who was last year's top 5 pick, and then whatever else you need. Like, that's a great start compared to if you were still at, what were they supposed to be, 8 and 14 or whatever it was going to be. So I do think, to your point, San Antonio really holds a lot of the cards here at number 2 now, whether do we draft. And it is an interesting fit. Like, this is what's fascinating to me about how this, like, once we get past all the conspiracies and all of that and the shock of all of this, it's like Cooper's amazing, but it is an interesting fit with the Dallas current roster the way it is. Would have made a lot more sense if they had like Luka and the bigs, and this San Antonio fit with Dylan Harper, where they also just traded for a guy who and drafted guys that, maybe this doesn't fit, perfectly well. So it makes it very interesting, even at the top.
Can we stop to talk about the fit real quick?
Sure.
In terms of Dylan Harper with Fox, with Castle.
Yeah.
So the reason why I'm a little bit skeptical of that fit is that none of those guys are particularly good in terms of shooting the basketball off of the catch.
Sure.
Right? Like Castle, we know, is not a great shooter. Dylan Harper's improving. I think Harper's probably, Fox is the best out of all of them right now because he's older, but like Harper's probably the best, hits the highest ceiling of those guys as a shooter at some point, in my opinion. I don't know that having those 3 guys around Victor is the situation that makes the most sense when building around Victor at the end of the day. If you have Fox, you should be building your organization around the Fox, Wemby pick and pop, right? Or pick and roll. Really pick and pop so that Fox can get all the way to the rim, get downhill, be able to create those paint touches and that rim pressure. But now Harper's best ability is playing on the ball, right?
Yep.
Castle, I think, showed some really interesting things, being able to cut off the ball, being able to play off the ball a little bit. But if you're putting Castle off of the ball, I think what that risk is putting the center on Castle, putting a 4-man on Wemby, and then being able to play off of Castle and having a secondary help man on the interior. And that's what worries me.
He just became Josh Hart of the New York Knicks, essentially is what you just described, which is,
he's
big,
better than that, but
he
if
is,
he doesn't shoot it, it's a real concern.
The idea of a floor spacing 5, as GMAC always brings up to us, is that you can play 5 out and space the floor everywhere. And Steph Castle complicates that. And with Dylan Harper, him playing off the ball, I don't think his instincts are there yet. I have a lot of notes. I was looking through the notes, where did I have with this off the ball stuff? And it's missed a relocation. Didn't show a lot of movement, cutting, those instincts that can be developed and shown on film and all of that. But I don't know that he's naturally going to come into the NBA. And if you're playing him off of De'Aaron and Wemby, he's naturally relocating to the slot. He's naturally hammering to the corner. He's naturally cutting at the right time. Those things take time to be developed. And it's also, do you want him? Is that the main focus you want for Dylan Harper coming into the league, is his off the ball instincts when he's this primary on ball guy? It does make it very interesting. Now, defensively, it could be a lot of fun with Harper and Castle and Victor behind him and all of that. But offensively, I think it could be it could be clunky. It truly could.
Yeah. So that's where the trade part comes in to me. Look, I'll ask you this question. Knowing what we know about Steph Castle right now, would you rather have the number 2 overall pick or Steph Castle coming off of his rookie year? This is not, by the way, this is not a hard answer for me, and I love Castle.
I say my answer is Dylan Harper, but I wasn't as high on Castle.
To me, for sure. Like, I would rather have Harper, and I had Castle at 3 in that draft. Like, I love Castle. I still love Castle. I think Harper is a more interesting upside swing than Steph Castle. Do you try and swing it so that you keep Harper now moving forward, and then you like maybe look to move Castle? Do you try to keep them both and like make it all work together? They have a lot of decisions coming up here. Like, I don't know what it's going to be. And to me, the thing is, though, that what getting the number 2 overall pick did, I actually think that they now spike Houston in terms of what they can offer and being able to offer the most, unless Houston is willing to put in Amen Thompson into a trade. Like, that I think is what this does.
Do
if
they
Houston's
have
willing to put in Amen, I would rather have Amen than number 2 at this point, just given the uncertainty of Harper to some extent. Look, I'm just really high on Amen. Like, that's the reality. But those 2 assets are like really close,
because
and
the Spurs have the
like,
best draft pick now of those 2
100%.
teams.
And to be clear, like, as someone just brought up in the comments, like, these are champagne problems. These are like amazing, amazing things to be able to have to deal with if you're San Antonio, but they are worth talking through, and they're really interesting to talk through.
Yeah, I mean, yes, they're legitimate conversations. I don't think that it's unfair to talk about putting potentially 2 non-shooting perimeter off-ball shooting perimeter players on the court, and specifically one who's coming into the league as a primary initiator not being able to play as a primary initiator. I think that's a fair conversation. And to be clear, both of us have already said we would still take Dylan Harper at number 2. I agree, because I think all of a sudden now, like to what we were saying earlier, San Antonio has the best draft capital individual piece of anybody in the league, other than
outside of Dallas. And like,
outside of Dallas,
I don't know.
correct.
Like, should we like have that conversation quickly? Like, we've been like very steadfast. I think we literally on the show where like someone asked, would you trade Cooper, or would Cooper or Giannis have more value? The answer I said was literally like, I don't know what Dallas would do, because Dallas seems to be operating in a totally different realm, but nobody else I think would trade Cooper for Giannis.
Chris texted me and said, would you trade the number 1 pick for Luka Doncic? Would the Mavs trade number 1 to the Lakers?
Yeah. I mean, I just don't know what Dallas would do. I don't know what, like, I don't think the Lakers would do that.
No.
Like,
It was just funny. Like, that was the first thing he sent to me. So
I truly, like, this whole thing now becomes kind of a mess.
Giannis and AD is a weird fit, isn't it, Sam? Isn't Giannis and AD like as awesome as they would be to
make it work? Yeah. To be clear, I want to be very clear with people. I would not trade Cooper Flag for Giannis. I am operating as if Nico Harrison is an irrational actor, as has been proven over the last 6 months. And I don't know what Nico Harrison is going to do.
I hope he just takes Dylan Harper at 1 and like melts everybody's brains.
That's the funniest outcome, right?
And the Spurs can take Cooper at 2 and everybody's happy.
That's truly the funniest potential outcome. But I think that they just take Cooper at 1 and try to make it work, is what I would guess here. And if that's the case, then you're right that the Spurs have the best draft capital to add, and they have the rookie of the year.
Yeah.
And that, comparing them to the Rockets have an all-star in Şengün. They have a guy that I think was better than Şengün, through real stretches this year in Amen. Like,
Şengün's also on a new contract already, though, Sam. Like, that's the other thing is like, when you're talking about, especially if it's a rebuilding team, like if you're the Bucks, depending on what way they want to go, do you want to take on, somebody that's entering their second contract already, as opposed to the rookie scale deals and all? I don't know. Maybe like the idea of Şengün and staying a little bit more competitive probably is enticing, but it is a factor.
Yeah. So let's just talk about the Spurs real quick in terms of like what an offer for Giannis looks like now, right? If this is a thing, which I'm not saying it is or it isn't, right? Like, maybe they do just want to slow play this and build out the long way. To me, the structure of that deal is like number 2, number 14, a couple other firsts, and then probably Vassell and Keldon, or your salary matching pieces. And the pressure point there for the Bucks is going to be Castle. They are going to ask for both number 2 and Castle. I can guarantee you that. The Spurs might say no to that, and I wouldn't necessarily blame them if that was the case. But that, I think, is what the negotiation would be, basically. I actually think that the deal structure, potentially adding in third teams, like maybe Portland wouldn't mind having Devin Vassell in order to take another jump next year to have like a stronger player there next to like Sheldon or Shaden Sharp and Scoot Henderson. And they'd be willing to give up like a first rounder, maybe they'd give up like 2 firsts to get off of the Jeremy Grant deal that, two of the swaps. I think they have swaps, right? Maybe they do something like Jeremy Grant and 2 of the swaps that the Bucks have moving forward for Vassell. I don't know. I'm like spitballing here. And that allows the Bucks to get some of their own picks back. It allows, the Blazers to pick up a player they may or may not like. I don't know. I'm just kind of trying to come up with like random structures here that work. But I actually think that like the finances and the value now lines up really well for the Spurs in terms of just like, okay, number 2, number 14, a couple picks, Vassell and Keldon, and then the pressure point is just whether or not they move Castle.
I've thought about this also. So who has the Bucks? I know they're spread out. 26 is a swap. 27.
Are you talking about the Bucks?
The Bucks, yeah. So what I was spitballing today, Sam, was like, couldn't they go to a team and say, "Will this work?" Like if let's live in the San Antonio world. Let's say they want 2 and they want Vassell, and they could they pull enough to say, "Go get our picks if you want to do business with us. Go get us back our 27." And then San Antonio has to go to, is it New Orleans that owns the 27? Is that
26 and 27 are New Orleans, 28, 29, and 30, I believe, are the Blazers.
The Blazers. So like, I just wonder if they could do that. Like if they could just say, "Hey, San Antonio, with what you have, you go get us this and make sure our picks are part of this deal." And then we'll I wonder how valuable that would be to Milwaukee, I guess, as opposed to 2 San Antonio picks or whatever they have. Is it more valuable to them to go get their own? So now you're talking 2 plus Vassell and Johnson plus their stuff back from New Orleans because San Antonio did whatever they needed to do to get those from New Orleans. Like, I just wonder if that's something Milwaukee could do. So now you're going, hey, we get this young talent in Dylan Harper, maybe 2 and 14, but we also have our own pick so we can kind of stay the course here of this true rebuild. I just wonder if that's something they could push from a team, because it's so we've always talked about this with Giannis, right? Like the teams that own the Bucks picks don't seem like the teams everybody's always talking about actually Giannis going directly to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
it's the same idea of what you just said with Portland.
Yeah. The other thing that like I will just note here is, let's say that Oklahoma City gets knocked out, right? I wonder if the Spurs winning this number 2 pick would make them maybe try to push up their timeline a little bit as well, to be like, okay, let's try and catch them before, let's block Giannis and Wemby is like a thing and try to make it work on our end with Giannis. Like, that's what this does now. This creates like a number of chess moves, and that's why number 2 is a lot more interesting to me than number 1. Honestly, like this creates so many chess moves that I don't really know where it goes.
Yeah, no, and the other thing was OKC didn't jump in, even though we thought for a second that they were going to. They, that's where they had, I guess they wouldn't have jumped in. They don't have a top, they don't have 7, 8, or 9 or something like that. So they don't even have the lottery pick this year, although I guess they have plenty of assets beyond. It was a really interesting lottery that I guess I hadn't thought through all of these different potential scenarios, but in one day we kind of knew the Giannis thing was potentially coming, but like really dropped today. And then you have these teams jump in. And like you said, then you have the playoffs aspect of it as well, right? Like what ends up happening with OKC. I was listening to, I think it was the Low Post today, or I guess it's the Zach Lowe show, whatever. And I think they brought up Cleveland as an interesting name if they end up losing this series. Like, what did they end up doing? And like, what does Darius Garland and Jarrett Allen start? Like, where does that get you? Like in terms of a starting point for this. So it's just like, it's not just, my point being, it's not just the lottery. It's also how some of these series are going to end up. Like what if the Knicks end up blowing this series after going up 2-0? You mentioned the Thunder, again, the Cavs down 3-1. Just what happens to some of these teams and how aggressive do they get if they get knocked out, and how do they kind of change course? So it's the funny thing
is that like, hey, I'm not convinced the Bucks do this with Giannis yet. Like totally. Like I've been saying that from the jump here. Like I'm not convinced the Bucks trade Giannis entirely yet. So we'll see. And maybe it's a different player. It might not be Giannis. It might be some other star that's available that, the Spurs end up trying to go out and get. Like there are different permutations. Like would Utah, look at something around Lowry with number 2 and number 5, right? Like, is there something that would work there? I don't know. I'm interested in a lot of different deals here.
The other part of this that's a lot of fun, back to the number 1 pick, is the Mavericks and the Bulls had that coin flip to decide, which at the time seemed insignificant, right? Because it's like, okay, you're either 11 or 12, and it's a 1.8 or 1.7.
I hadn't thought of that.
It's 1.8 or 1.7 chance at number 1. Who really cares? But we are 50-50 chance away from talking about the Chicago Bulls with the number 1 pick right now.
Oh my God. That's amazing. I had not even considered that, Bryce. That's wild. That's truly crazy. Okay. Before we move into the rest of this thing and talk about the rest of the lottery shakeout, let's hit some ads. PrizePicks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. You can cash in on the basketball playoffs with PrizePicks. Don't miss your last chance to add your favorite players from the court to your PrizePicks lineups. Whether it's points, rebounds, assists, you can take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today. Turn those playoff hot takes into tickets to basketball's championship series. Starting with the play-in round, every lineup that you make on PrizePicks will enter you into the Takes 2 tickets sweepstakes, which could get you and a +1 a VIP trip to the ship. Every Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts several projections on the board, usually by 15 to 25%. Fridays are Flex Friday. You can opt in and tap the checkbox in your lineup builder to be eligible for the protected play. Choose squares from any games on the board. If your lineup does not win, you get your net losses back in promo funds up to your promo limit as soon as the lineup settles. Download the app today and use the code Game Theory to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code Game Theory to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Our second sponsor today is a new one. It's Hall of Fame. We've all been one leg away from hitting that massive parlay, be it an unexpected strikeout in the 9th or a garbage time pick 6. Maybe it was a last second layup when the game was already decided. We have all been there. And man, if you're tired of throwing money at a parlay that you just have a feeling is going to hit, the Hall of Fame app has completely changed the game. It's founded by lifelong sports fans who just happen to be giant data nerds that graduated from Ivy League schools. You can finally have a leg up on Vegas using historical data, matchup grades, correlation tools for legs of your parlays, player performance insights, and with a 4.9 rating in the App Store and over 6,000 5-star reviews. It's safe to say the Hall of Fame app has already helped a lot of people win smarter. Whether you like to hit player props, game lines, or totals, Hall of Fame is going to give you the tools to break down the trends and find the value that you need to make smarter choices. For a limited time only, our listeners not only get a 7-day free trial, but they also get 50% off their first month when they use code Game Theory at checkout. Just download the HOF app on iOS or Android, enter the code Game Theory, and you're all set. Okay, Bryce. Number 3 is the Philadelphia 76ers, which is like almost their most interesting position to me too. Because if they had just gotten 1 or 2, I think they just take Cooper or Dillon. Now at number 3, I really wonder, do they look at a circumstance where, I don't know, you try to like take Ace and make it work? Do you look at like another bigger wing, like Colin Murray-Boyles? I think that's probably out the window at this point at number 3. Do you just try and take like Con Knipple and say like, this is a guy that works for us? Like he gives us lineup flexibility. He's a great shooter. Or do you try and move this? Like, I actually wonder if this now becomes available as well in a deal to try and go get some sort of star player.
Yeah, it's interesting. Also, I just like checked over on YouTube. It looks like we have like 1,000 people watching. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, like jump in, hit subscribe, hit the like, continue to stay around because draft coverage and NBA playoff coverage is going to stay hot and heavy here for the next couple of months. So it's interesting. We've been taking Ace. It seems like in our mocks recently, they've landed at 3. I think in both of them that where you did the random spin ahead of time, I had somebody reach out to me kind of questioning the Ace fit with Philly in terms of like the ball sticking, processing offensively, like, you know, does that actually not work as well? And so it's interesting where like, I think VJ could make sense just in terms of like this defender, shot maker, like you brought up Con. Do you try to get a little more, do you just get super dynamic with Trey, even though you have Jared? Like, is that something you could do here? I liked his measurements coming in today. Like, that's the other thing. The combine is also going on today. So leading up to this, we were getting all these measurements and wingspans and all of that as well. They end up in a very interesting spot where I think the position they like, I would love to give them is like a 4-man, right? Like a forward, but I don't know that, I don't know if you go there, like 3 is awfully rich for like Carter Bryant or somebody like that, even for CMB. So you almost have to end up with a backcourt guy, if it's not Ace. And so I think I still just default to Ace. But it is an interesting spot where I would think that Daryl Morey would very much be looking to maybe move that pick and bring in a more veteran presence, depending on what you know about the health of Joel and PG.
Yeah, Ace's measurements did not turn out.
They did.
Fantastic.
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, 6'7.5" barefoot, 203 pounds with a 7'1.5" wingspan and an 8'11" standing reach. The 8'11" standing reach is like great for the role he's going to play. I think we might have expected like a little bit bigger, right?
Yeah.
Like that was the idea. Like he would be sub 6'9" in shoes even, which is fine. Look, I don't know that the measurements matter that much for him. Like I don't know that they hinder him that far, but I am at least intrigued to see if they impact any, upside swings for him, right? Like, does anybody look at, him as, honestly, the number that worries me is like 200 pounds at that size with the high waist, with everything like that.
That's kind of crazy.
Guys.
That's really like, I'm just comparing that to myself. So what was he without shoes?
6'7.5". So what,
6'7"
you're like 6'5" and a half without shoes?
Without shoes. And like, I'm 215 and I feel like I'm skinny for an NBA. Like if I was trying to play,
you are a skinny human being.
Yeah. So especially for NBA standards. So he's an inch taller and like 15 pounds lighter than me is kind of crazy. And And I know a lot of people think that like weight and strength and all of that is low hanging fruit, and maybe it is, but I think it's at least worth pointing out that like that seems very slight. I would have expected him to. This was one of those that did stand out to me when they came across. Some I was like, yeah, that's not surprising. I thought they would have a plus. Like you brought up Cedric Coward, our guy, and I actually got a chance to see him in person a year ago when he was at Eastern Washington. And I was like, it was one of the first things that stood out to me was just like his length, his wingspan. I was not expecting this from Ace. I guess I was expecting to be like, oh yeah, like 6'9.5", 6'10" in shoes and, so it did stand out to me when it came across.
Yeah, like the height, I don't really care that much. It's the weight, like in the fact that he's not super. And like I saw some clips. I mean, look, like this is me just probably being a hater on some level, but like they released clips of him like dribbling on like a workout facility that was striped like a football field, and I don't know why they released these clips because like he's dribbling the ball and they're trying to say, oh, he's working on his handle. And like the handle is still like way above his waist, like when he's not being guarded by anybody. And I was just like, I wonder what the team there is doing. I don't blame Ace for that. I blame the folks around Ace for putting that out.
Let's just say we've had a few conversations over the last week with question marks on the videos chosen to be published and the push behind them with certain players in terms of, oh, they're working on this skill set, or look at them do this. And we're both kind of like, yeah, that's probably not the right push for said player with that. So,
yeah, I want to look back at Brandon Miller's combine measurements real quick. So Brandon Miller, when he went through the combine, that would have been 2 years ago. He was, let's see if we can find it. Brandon Miller did not do an actual measurement because of course he didn't, right? I would guess Brandon Miller was in this ballpark in terms of weight. And he is skinny on an NBA court. Like he gets moved around. And Ace's waist is higher than Brandon's is the issue. And his handle is not as good as the other big issue. But I mean, look, Ace is a real shot maker. Like there are things that he does with the ball in his hands as a difficult shot maker that are like genuinely special. I just don't know that Philly needs it either.
So here's the thing. I want to clarify why we think this is a potential issue. Because you keep saying the weight with the high hips is if he gets to 225, 230, now he can guard traditional fours a little bit better, right?
Correct.
At 203, he's not holding up physically against those guys. And we have questions about the perimeter defense in terms of lowering his hips, moving his feet, and chasing around threes or twos or whatever. And so that is why this matters. Just for anybody that's like, well, why do you keep talking about his weight and his hips? What does it matter? It's more so the defensive end, specifically with these two, and offensively, taking contact. Offensively. Sure.
Yeah, it's all of it. Like it's the way it bears itself out on the court for him. Like he does not get paint touches. He doesn't get paint touches because he's very high waisted and he's very skinny and struggles to play through contact on the perimeter whenever he gets bumped by a defensive player.
Yeah, and I just think for Philly specifically, that aspect, because like I think for Philly, it's like come in, knock down shots, and whatever. To me, it's like they need a four-man that can take those matchups, and he's not going to physically be able to do that based off what these numbers and all of that. So I don't know what I don't know.
We're shitting on Ace Bailey, and I don't really want to do that.
Yeah. No, it's again, we talk about this every time. I think we feel differently than a lot of people do about the top of the draft in terms of obviously how we feel about Cooper, Dylan at number 2. And then after that, there's questions. My thing is I would, as much as we said, I would still take Ace at 3 because I think I have more confidence in him than VJ Edgecombe, to be honest. And
I hate what I would say.
What's that?
I would take On. On.
So I'll throw this at you with Kondo. Somebody didn't like his measurements today. Like they threw that at me with
he was 6'5". Yeah, he was 6'5" or whatever.
The neutral wingspan.
But we knew here's the thing though. We knew that. What did I say? I think I said the measurements for Con would probably be between 6'5" to 6'5.5" barefoot with arms that are not particularly long And the reality is that he's just a fucking gamer, and like he's awesome at basketball. And with Ace, it's that he wasn't great at basketball this year, and his team was not very good, and he never passed the ball. And defensively, it was really hit or miss from an engagement perspective. Whereas with Khan, he was an awesome passer. He could drive and get to, like, the funny thing is that people will look at Ace Bailey and say, oh yeah, like I'm sure he gets more paint touches than a guy that looks like Con Knipple. Con Knipple got way more paint touches this year than Ace Bailey did. And I'm not saying Con got a lot of them, but like probably doubled them, I would guess. So it again, like all of this matters. The measurements matter insofar as the way that it bears out on their game on the court.
Yeah.
And with Khan, I don't think his measurements being a little bit smaller actually bears out all that much on the court at the end of the day.
I think people's immediate reaction is like, is he going to be able to scale up and guard some of the positions we've talked about, right? Because like we've talked about Khan being able to guard like threes and stuff like that because physically we like.
Can he be Max Strussi?
Yeah, like holding up physically with his torso and all of that. And it's like, okay, well, when your length isn't as good, does that cause some limitations there? And like my answer is like, yes, but I don't believe in Khan. Like, I don't think Khan's like upside is what I'm drafting, even though it's a potential top 5, top 7, top 8 pick. I just think Khan is going to be a really quality NBA player. He's going to be an advantage exploiter and he's going to be a team defender. That's what I'm drafting him for. And I don't know that the measurements change my thought on him being able to do that at a really good level.
Okay. Let's move on from Philly. I mean, Charlotte, like we expected Charlotte to end up like somewhere in the top 4. So like, we'll talk a little bit about Charlotte when we do like the mock here in 15 or so minutes. I do want to talk about some of the teams that dropped, particularly Utah. I think that this was like a disaster night for the Jazz, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, what, they fall all the way to 5. Listen, this is going to sound, I've watched this happen for a couple times with the team that I cover year in and year out. So like, there's not a huge surprise from me. Like I feel bad for Utah fans because I saw how it crushed Detroit fans. The difference was like Detroit had got the number 1 pick. And I think it made it a little bit easier to handle dropping to 5 3 years in a row, not always from 1, but yeah, it's tough. To me, it's like, if you're not 1 or 2, this is devastating. And so for Utah, it's like, okay, well, you really want Cooper, but if we fall to 2, Dillon makes a lot of sense. Now you fall to 5, and that is really tough for them. It sucks. It does. I feel bad for them, but at the end of the day, like, it's almost a 50-50 chance whenever you're there like that. These are the lottery odds. Like for Utah, 48% chance of falling to number 5. It's essentially a coin flip. Yep. So it is devastating for them because I think what you really needed was a young star. They have a lot of these young players, but I don't know that I like have crazy high upside for any of those young players. This was your chance to get one of those.
I think that is unfortunately accurate for the Jazz, and they're still going to get a high upside player here. Like it's going to be something like, Trey Johnson, maybe Ace Bailey falls to 5. They can take Con Knipple, they can take the flyer on Jeremiah Fears. Like you can, I'm not saying that I would do that. Like I have Fears way lower than everybody else, but like there's at least like a ceiling there. If they wanted to take the ceiling player, they could do that. I mean, the guy that to me makes sense for them is probably Trey Johnson. I think Trey Johnson is like a really good fit within that scheme for Will Hardy because he can really shoot off of movement, even though Texas didn't utilize him that way this year. He is a guy that can at least like consistently score the basketball in a way that they just need somebody to be able to do so.
As I was doing the mock in my head, and like, obviously I don't want to spoil it. I know we're going to get into it, but like, that's I don't want to say ideal, but like, I like the idea of, if things kind of fall the way I would picture in my head, Trey ended up going at 5 to Utah is a decent quote unquote consolation. Like there is no consolation to not getting Cooper or Dillon, but there's a little mixture of like, this guy can at very least, like you said, fit into the scheme and really shoot it, along with maybe some higher upside. Like maybe he ends up being the best scorer in this class and Utah can start to build off of that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Um, the other team that drops obviously is Washington. I'll be honest. I struggled with them more in the mock that is coming out momentarily at the
Yeah,
Athletic
that was
than
me as well,
any other
Sam.
team.
Yeah. Again, I went through it in my head and I got there and I'm like, oh shoot, what do I do here? Because I know there's a couple different options for the Pelicans that I think will still be there. Brooklyn, same thing, and then you get into Washington is the team here where like I can't even find the name that I love. And again, based off my experience, Wizards fans want upside. Like they want something, like they want to swing at something here. And so like I wonder if they become Jeremiah Fears fans in Washington leading up to this thing. Like just give us the upside of that. Or obviously Derek Queen is local, so like maybe went to college local, so maybe they I just wonder if those are the names.
Like I think they can't be a Fears team because I think there's just like no way that him and Bub can play together to me.
So that again, like that's it's interesting, but I just wonder if I'll be interested to hear from some Wizards fans and some Wizards like content creators in terms of where they go now. Cause I think their minds had been, okay, we fall out of 1-2. Is it Ace? Is it VJ? Like who do we go there? Even at 5, but now you're here at 6 and it's like the calculation, because Ace probably isn't dropping, VJ's probably not dropping, we just talked about Trey's probably already off the board. Who's the guy that kind of gets Wizards fans excited at that point? So
I mean, to me, like we'll talk about this when we do the mock, but like Queen is an interesting guy for me. Here's kind of the last thing I want to talk about before we move into actually like doing a quick mock and like going through all of this. Is the like revised lottery working?
I saw this tweet. I haven't had time to think about it. I want to say no, right? The argument against is teams are tanking and not getting better at the same time, right? Like, isn't that isn't that the counter to this? Is we still have people still tanked for Cooper Flag, and those teams are just like, if you're the Wizards, don't you go, well, we're just going to tank again now? As opposed to if you get Cooper, you start building it out. Because now he's going to Dallas, who's already trying to win. Dylan Harper's going to San Antonio, who was already going to try to win. But now Utah, Washington, those are the two that really jump out. They're going to say, screw this. We don't have the young superstar now. We have to tank again to try it for next year for Peterson or DeBansa or Boozer.
I think that's right. Like, I don't think this is working in the way that the NBA hoped for. I think that the reality is that because the lottery is so expansive now, where a team is jumping up from 11th and a team is jumping up from 8th, that just so many of these teams at the bottom of the league just continue to be terrible. And I think it would probably really create a sense of apathy within a real degree of a lot of those fan bases, because they just keep losing lottery picks at the end of the day. Like, you didn't really have to deal with that because, like, the Pistons drafted Cade Cunningham at the end of the day. Yeah. And like, yes, they kept dropping to 5 or whatever, but like they still had Cade. Cade was always going to be great.
Correct.
Like Utah.
Think about this. What if the year they got 1 was last year though? What if they would have got like 5, and then ended up with Alex Sarr? They would be in no man's land right now with a bunch of number 3 potential options on a team as opposed to a face of the franchise guy.
Totally. No, I completely agree. So like, I think where I'm at is that this is not working. I think it's creating.
You know who this sucks for?
Teams? Yeah, go ahead.
Is Brooklyn. Like, didn't Brooklyn
totally
do it the quote unquote right way? And they got effing jumped by all of these teams. Like, Brooklyn dropped 2 spots, which in this draft, Sam, I don't know that it is a huge deal. But like, isn't that the team subjectively should have jumped up, that like did it the right way that you would want to see move up, and they actually moved down 2 spots?
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely true. But like, I think at the end of the day, the draft is always going to be the best opportunity for these teams to go get real players, right? Smaller market teams, particularly like Utah, right? And the thing that's disappointing about this is that there is just no way for them to get out of the mud unless they drill their draft picks later on, which is hard, like is unlikely, frankly. Like very few stars come from outside of the lottery, right? But on top of it, like it's just hard to figure out the actual mechanism for them to get better unless they win a top 2, top 3 pick in the right draft. And look, like they probably tank next year given their situation. Maybe they go out and trade for a point guard or whatever, but like they probably tank next year. They probably have, a 48% chance or whatever to get AJ DeBanza, Cam Boozer, or Darren Peterson, right? But like that's another year of that market just being nowhere, right? And teams don't tank to teams do tank to get the number 1 pick, right? That's the goal at the end of the day. But like if you're nowhere, you're tanking in order to get your best lottery odds and really to reduce your downside more than anything. Like the Jazz at the end of the year were putting those lineups out there because they wanted the top pick odds, not because their pick odds would have changed if they were the worst team or the third worst team, but because their downside is going from number 5 to number 7 if they're the third worst team, right? So no matter what, you're going to have these teams tank. I think it probably makes more sense for the lottery odds to go back up to where these teams that are terrible get a better. It's not like they were high before. It was fucking 25%.
Yeah.
Like it makes more sense for these lottery odds to be better for the bad teams. I think is where I'm at.
Scale them a little bit differently so that those teams stay up there. Yeah. It's just like my other thing is like, you're making those markets like just kind of non-existent. Like this was a chance to make Washington interesting, Utah interesting, to make people want to tune. And maybe the NBA doesn't care. Like maybe it does. They don't need all 30 teams and all 30 markets. But I mean, I don't know. I saw the way random fans kind of would text me and talk to me about watching the Pistons this year, and all of a sudden they were fun and all of that. I think it can come from any market, and I just hate for them that they continue to stay in this same rut. And I don't blame them whenever they tank again next year. Like I don't want to hear people complain about it because they dropped. And what is Utah's other path to that? I guess you could argue maybe they should have drafted. I'm sure if you went through each of their drafts and who they picked and when they picked and who went after them, but like you say, it's hard to do it away from the top. So I don't think it doesn't, to me, seem like it's working because again, it's not taking away from tanking. Like that's still happening anyway. So
yeah, no, I agree. Okay. You ready to mock draft, Bryce?
Yep. Let's do it.
Okay. Number 1 overall pick goes to the Dallas Mavericks. Maybe I'll pull up the mock draft thing while we go, see if Fanspo is updated yet. And if not, I can maybe try and pull one together. Dallas Mavericks have number 1 overall pick. They are going to take Cooper Flagg, right? That's where we're at.
Yes, sir.
The other thing I want to bring up with Cooper, having thought about this a little bit more, beyond Cooper being awesome and being this incredible two-way player, is that they actually like need shot creation in a real way, right? And like Cooper having the ability to do that now is really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Like that is awesome. That's like really fantastic. But B, he's also the two-way player that like Nico Harrison has been talking about wanting for so long, is like the ideal archetype. I that's at least also interesting to me. I wonder if we go back to being like, oh yeah, like Nico Harrison is now good at being a GM again because he's building this two-way team around Cooper Flagg, even though he made like this catastrophic Luka deal.
I mean, sure. Okay. So we're not giving Nico credit for jumping 1.8% to number 1. We're not going to do that, right?
We're not giving him credit for that. I'm just saying, I wonder if there is a world where, you know, this is the type of team he wants to build and thus it gets figured out.
Yeah. I mean, it very well could. I that was one thing. Cooper to Dallas, there were the two things. I had the same thoughts. Was one, this is the two-way player. Like there's not going to be any debate. Like, oh, defense wins championship. Can he take Cooper Flag number one? Like Cooper Flag plays defense. The other one I think that is actually more interesting is how much do they let him create? Like we spent 15 minutes talking about, do you trade Lively, Washington, et cetera, to go get a guard? I actually had someone just send me in my DMs a Ja Morant to the Mavericks trade. I thought that was fascinating. But if they don't, how much do they let Cooper do that, right? Like that's one thing we talked about that we were impressed this year was Cooper's ability to like create a little bit. So how much can they do that with him? So no brainer number one.
To me, like the most interesting guard deal on the board right now is what if Luka convinces the Lakers to say, hey, I really want Lively, and they like Austin Reeves for Lively is now the most interesting deal kind of on the market to me.
That one is fascinating. Interesting. I like it.
If you do, so Austin can play with Kyrie, can play without Kyrie. He can also be the main primary ball handler.
Yeah.
You already have AD. You already have Gafford if AD doesn't want to play the 5 all the time.
Yeah.
That one's the one where I'm like, okay, there's like a lot of things that line up for that one.
Yeah, sure. That is really interesting. Yeah.
And again, like Luka and Lively have real synergy already.
Yeah.
That one's intriguing. Okay. Number 2. We've talked through this already. We're just going to take Dylan Harper here.
Yeah.
We have some concerns on the fit next to Fox and Stephon Castle. That's a real thing to me. Like that is absolutely a genuine concern in terms of how all three of those guys would be able to work together and how all three of those guys would actualize their best player in Victor Wembanyama, right?
Yep.
Because all three of those guys, not questionable shooters. Castle's definitely a questionable shooter right now, but like Harper can sometimes make shots. Fox has become like a shot maker, particularly from the mid-range area. But like, I still think that it's Harper. It's just who is it? Like, who is it for?
Yeah. No, I can't not go Harper here. And like, again, whether it's for San Antonio or there's a bigger trade there that happens. And again, like Giannis is everybody's conversation right now. You know, who knows who else may come available again as these playoffs continue. But I can't not go Dylan Harper at 2.
Yeah, and you know, just again to be clear, the Giannis thing, if the Bucks make him available, which I'm not totally convinced of yet, the Bucks probably can't do better than Dylan Harper, I would guess, is the primary asset, unless the Rockets make Amen Thompson available. So that's where I'm at this point. If they make Amen Thompson available, it's a different conversation. If the Rockets don't, I think this is probably your best asset available. And we'll see what happens then, right? But like the structure of a deal with a Bucks Giannis Spurs situation is kind of easy with Harper, number 14, a couple of other picks, Vassell, Keldon, and then maybe you try and move some stuff around to get some of the other Bucks picks back to Milwaukee too. Yep. But there are some pretty interesting ways to be able to make a deal with this number 2 pick happen. I think at the end of the day, we're still just going to go with Harper here, right?
Yep, I agree.
Okay. And Dylan Harper, 6'5" guard, great on-ball creator, great handle, terrific polish. And I would personally have him as a better asset moving forward than Stephon Castle.
Yep, I agree with all of that.
Okay. Number 3, the Philadelphia 76ers. Where are you at with this after we talked through this a little bit before?
I mean, I'm struggling not to just stay with Ace because I don't have a better answer for you, right? Like that's trade, obviously, but if it's not that, if Philly is making this pick for Philly, I was trying to look at their roster and like see how much playing time is available for a VJ or a Con or even a Trey, right? Because you have Maxey, Grimes, and McCain in the backcourt. So maybe there's a little bit more there, but I don't know. I don't know how much. With that, of course, assuming they re-sign Grimes. So I'm still leaning Bailey, but I could be talked into other avenues.
To me, it's Ace or Con. I think Con can create some real lineup flexibility for them in terms of, okay, we can play Con with Grimes and one of the guards. We can play two of the guards with Con. I don't think you can really play like two of the guards, Grimes and Con, right?
I wouldn't know.
I would think no. But like, I like Con enough as like a actual like ball screen decision maker too, to where he would allow Jared McCain to be able to play off the ball a little bit more consistently. He would allow Tyrese sometimes to play off the ball a little bit more. I think that we're going Ace here. But the other piece of this is that I think that with Ace more than anything, this is probably the guy that we can see other teams coming up to get.
Sure.
Like, is there a world where New Orleans is like, we would rather have Ace than like Trey Murphy or something? And I'm not saying that's a good idea. I'm just saying, like, you know, could you do like Ace for Herb Jones maybe?
Yeah, I would not. If I'm New Orleans, I would not do that. I wonder if this is like, what if Washington talked themselves into this? Like, what could Washington, is there something Washington could give up to Philly that would be intriguing if Washington just thought this was their swing, right? Like we talked about Washington making a swing. Is there somebody that, I don't know who on the roster makes the sense there though. Yeah, just looking through Washington's roster, I'm not sure I have the name or the trade or the asset where that makes a ton of sense. So
yeah, like with New Orleans, like I can come up with like, okay, let's go get like a crazy wing stopper and Herb Jones.
Yeah.
And could we move like 7 and Herb for number 3 and like other stuff, right?
Good.
I think 7 and Herb is too much for number 3, but I think that is there like a window where you can even it out somehow? Maybe. I don't know. I'm just kind of like spitballing here. Yeah,
that's interesting because I agree with you. I think if somebody were to move up in this draft, in this it's for Ace, right? Actually, you know, after the top 2, obviously. I think it'd be somebody talking themselves, which I understand. I can understand why they would, into this 2-way wing shot maker, all of that. So I think this would be the spot if somebody wanted to. And then if you're Philly, you move back to 6 or 7 or whatever and feel like you're still going to get Con or Trey or, you know, worst case scenario, you know, Carter. We're both bigger Carter Bryant fans than most, but Carter Bryant or somebody like that. So
yeah. Okay. We're going to go Ace here. We don't feel great about it. Number 4, we do feel great about. This is the fit that you and I have been talking about for months.
Yeah. VJ or Con.
VJ is the perfect player.
Yep.
For the Charlotte Hornets to me. He is a good defensive player who can take on tough assignments at the 1, 2, and 3, like without real issue. He is super, super athletic. He's a great running mate if they decide to continue down the LaMelo Ball road and play up-tempo basketball. He is a guy who knocks down catch and shoot threes. Like this is a win. And look, like the measurements today ended up not as bad as what I expected. He did come in at 6'4" barefoot. Like that is a huge win for him, right? I'm going to pull up the measurements as we speak, the exact measurements. It was 6'4" barefoot, 6'7.5" wingspan, 8'5.5" standing reach. That's like the perfect player to play in between LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller to me.
Yep. Like you said, we've talked about this. I was kind of looking at some, talent that fits for the Hornets, and defensive playmaking were a couple things like I noted for them. And those are two things that VJ it does really well. He slots right in between those guys, and defensively, he's a guy that can make plays and be disruptive. You mentioned getting out in transition, knocking down shots. He doesn't need the ball. He won't take the ball away from those guys. He just plays off of them. I like this for, again, if you're Charlotte, you want to end up in the top 2. You don't. This ends up being a pretty good slot for them, in my opinion.
I think they would have taken him at 3, to be honest.
I agree. They are one of the teams they are one of the teams I would have taken VJ over Ace.
Yes. Okay. Number 5 is the Utah Jazz. The guys that we think are good there are Walker Kessler and Lauri Markkanen. The guys that we have real questions about are Keontae George, Isaiah Collier, Taylor Hendricks, unfortunately. Like, I think Hendricks is probably a solid player, but coming off the injury, you never know.
Cody Williams for me.
Cody Williams is an upside swing. Let's go with at the very least. Like, there's a chance that could work. I really like Trey Johnson here personally. I think that the way that Will Hardy's offense is structured, a guy that they just signed to a long-term extension, will be the coach for a long time, a guy that they love as a front office there. I think that Trey Johnson makes a crazy amount of sense here personally. The way that they run guys off of screens, get them open, this is like a home run.
Yep, I'm with it. I like it a lot. I like him going to a place where he's going to be utilized off the ball, not having to be like even if he's like their primary option at times, which he wouldn't be with Lowry, it's not going to be on the ball isolation stuff, which is what my concerns with Trey was like, okay, if he's going to be that guy, I don't believe in the separation and creation and get away from defenders' ability. I do believe in, hey, let's utilize him in creative ways off the ball to knock down shots off movement. And another guy whose measurements came in really interesting today with his height and his wingspan. So I like this spot for Trey Johnson as well. We are in agreement there.
Did I miss his measurements? So he was 6'4" 3/4, 6'10" wingspan, 8'5" standing reach. It's about what I expected, I guess.
Yeah. So to me, that's like I put 6'6" in shoes with a 6'10" wingspan. Like I like that for an off ball shot maker.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a good point. I don't know. I've like stood next to Trey and I was like, yeah, this looks like 6'5", 6'6" in shoes. Sounds right. Like I was like, yeah, like talking to him, I was like, yeah, this seems right. Length, +4, +5, something like that. So yeah, okay. Trey Johnson to Utah. Number 6, the Washington Wizards. So this was really hard. This was hard for me in the mock. Khan is my top player available. I just don't know how much Khan ticks the maybe he does more than I'm thinking, but like the Will Dawkins, Oklahoma City model that the Wizards seem to be employing, where it's like plus positional size and then like dribble, pass, shoot, decision making, defensive skill, everything like that. He actually ticks more of those boxes than kind of what I'm envisioning in my head, though, I guess a little bit.
Yeah, I struggle with this one. Like I said, I got to this point as well. The way we went the top 5 is how I immediately played it out in my head. And then I got here and I'm like, okay, Khan is interesting. Just get another good player. I think Derek Queen is interesting. I've come around on Derek Queen. And my thing there is like, how do him and Sar play out in regards to them together? In some ways, it could be fun. In some ways, I think
can I spoil that for you?
Yeah,
I kind of love it.
Okay, so like Sar makes up for it defensively, and then like what? Ideally Sar is gonna have to. If Sar's gonna work, he's gonna space the floor, and if he's spacing the floor, then you can play him with Queen, and then now Queen can be this Alperen Şengün like decision maker, all of that stuff.
Still a lot of like 5-out concepts because Queen has the ball in his hands a lot. I mean, I think like Bub and Queen, like 2-man game could be really fun long term. I like Queen here quite a bit. The more I thought about it,
I'm honestly cool with it. Like it's between those two for me. Like 100%. I've really come around on Queen. Like I really came around on the offensive skill and specifically like some of the stuff he could do off the bounce. I was really, interested by. And again, to me, that makes sense with Sar because if Sar is going to work, he's playing off the ball. You can play, and then now Sar is like, again, this off ball rim protector can make up for like the things that Queen can't do, will give up, etc. I'm willing to try this out if I'm Washington based on what's there.
Yes.
Again, my notes are high end talent, like a swing. When I took Colin Murray Boyles here a couple months ago, I was a little higher on CMB. Since going back and rewatching film and stuff, I've come away higher on Derek Queen, especially if it all kind of hits. So I'm cool here with Queen at 6.
I really like Derek Queen. He's one of those dudes that's just always been an ass kicker wherever he goes. And it matters. Like being an ass kicker at every single level and being awesome at basketball at every single level, like just matters to me at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So on top of that, like real face-up game that Alex Sar, like in the half court that Alex Sar doesn't have. Sar can like grab and go and like create in transition, and then Queen can be the trailer. And like you can get your offense jump started that way. Or Queen can also grab and go. Like you have 5 guys who can start your offense that way. You have Derek Queen who can rebound in a way that Alex Sar really can't, unfortunately.
Sure. Yeah.
There's like no real like downhill like rim force from either of those guys in a way that would be like a little bit worrisome. But if Sar's going to work, like he has to shoot it. So
I think if I'm the Wizards
works.
and I don't end up in the top 2 or even 3, like say Bailey was somebody that people are excited about, I think the swing I'm going to take is like, I'm going to be massive in the front line with Alex Sar and Derek Queen and take a bet on their offensive skill sets working together and all. Like if I'm going to take a bet on something, if I'm going to make the best out of falling to 6, this might be it. With the caveat, it may fail miserably. Maybe one of them works and you have to trade the other one eventually, right? But I think I'd be willing to try this out and see.
Yep. Okay. Number 7, the New Orleans Pelicans. This is just kind of an easy one to me to take on.
Yep, 100%. Yep.
Take the guy who spaces it. Your trio long-term, if you keep Zion, if you don't keep Zion, your wing trio long-term is Con, Herb, and Trey Murphy, all of whom I think can play together.
Yep.
You have the shooting, hopefully from the corners from Herb, but definitely from Con and Murphy long-term. Murphy can play on the ball a little bit. I still think if you're going to make Zion work, it has to be like at the point almost more than anything. So I like Con here is their pick.
Yeah, I like that trio. You got to build it out around that. Like you said, depending on what they do with Zion will be interesting. But that trio in terms of the floor spacing that Con provides, a little bit of ball handling between what we saw from Trey this year and what we think Con will be able to do. And then obviously Herb is taking all of the primary defensive matchups. So Con is never going to have to do anything like that, right? Like him and Trey can take the second and third options depending on what their body types make more sense. But Con, a really good off-ball team defender. This is a no-brainer to me based on my board and just fitting in nicely with that team.
Yeah. Okay. Number 7, Con Knipple. Number 8, the Brooklyn Nets. What do you want to do here? So, like, I'll tell you what I did in the mock. I put Jeremiah Fears here.
Sure.
Jeremiah Fears, from what I was told, was like within the top 10 players. How the teams, not every team gets every player's medical information, right? They rank the top 10 players and, only allow certain teams to get the medicals for each of those players, right? And Fears was in the top 10 from what I was told of those players. So like the league feels like he's going somewhere in this group. I guess that I would just like, this is a real upside swing. Like this is one of the teams that I can actually understand doing this, even if I am personally lower on him as a player.
Yeah, I have Kasparis ranked higher, but like my team needs for the Nets, like obviously a lot of this is just like talent, right? But high end talent and creation. And because I think creation, paint touches, downhill, like all of that is needed for Brooklyn. I do think if there's like Fears does that better than Kasparis, I think. And so I could understand if Brooklyn talks themselves into it. I would probably still just take Kasparis because I like his ability of like on, off ball and just like all around game. But if you're just like going for the high end talent, and just really fit in there and take a swing on it, I understand Fears here. Like, I guess I get it. It would probably be one of the teams because like after this, I'm not really sure where he lands. But here I understand it for Brooklyn, I guess.
I also understand the Fears idea. I understand the Yakashonis idea. Like, what about Kasparis works for you here?
Yeah, I mean, I just think, again, he's a guy that can play on the ball. He has, his numbers came in good today as well, I feel like, in terms of his measurements. And so I think, I don't know that he's quite the rim pressure guy that Fears is, but I like a little bit of just like his versatility at the guard position. And I will say I had somebody bring up to me, they were like, how many, we've highlighted the turnover issues, right? And they brought up to me, like, how many guys have completely failed in the NBA? How many guys that had college turnover issues have completely failed in the NBA because of the turnover issues? Like, are we overstating that, I guess was their point.
I mean, like Emmanuel Mudiay wasn't in college, but like a big reason why was high turnover guy in the CBA, high turnover guy in the NBA, couldn't handle. I would argue Chris Dunn is probably another example of that. So like, I don't agree with that ideal, maybe is the way to phrase it, unfortunately.
Well, I didn't have the names to push back. Like the name I used to push back was Cade Cunningham. Like Cade had turnover issues in college. They've persisted to the NBA, but he's succeeding because he's so much better at everything else than what Kasparis is. And so it ends up not mattering, where with Kasparis, if the turnover issues persist and he's not as high level at all of those other things, what does that end up looking like?
Yeah, the thing with Yakashonis that makes me a little bit more comfortable is he can play off the ball.
Agreed.
Versus on the ball. And by the way, Jeremiah Fears has turnover issues of his own.
Sure.
That we need to talk about. And like, I think Jeremiah's are like a little bit more understandable because he is a player that like didn't have as much help around him as Kasparis did this year. Also, like, we probably underrated Jalen Moore throughout the year at Oklahoma as like a real player, given the fact that he got a combine invite, right?
Yeah, sure.
So there's just a lot to parse through here if I'm Brooklyn. I think that more than anything, to be honest with you, the reason that I like Yakashonis personally here, I think Fears is a player that will probably be selected somewhere in this area. Yeah. And like, I'm good with him going to Brooklyn. Having said that, they also have 1 billion picks later, and there are going to be a lot of point guards that fall down the board and tumble down the board here.
That's interesting.
And I think if you're trying to game the system a little bit better, if I was Brooklyn personally, I would assume that I would be able to get a guy like Jace Richardson, Ben Seraph, Walter Clayton, Noah Penda, Jaeger Demon.
Traore, maybe.
Nolan Traore, I don't think gets the 19. I don't think Fears gets the 19. But like a lot of different like smaller guards that could get there. And I think if you take Fears, you probably shouldn't be taking any of those players.
If you take
Yakashonis,
yeah,
you might be able to double up.
Yeah. No. Okay. So I would take, like, if this was individual where like what we normally do, where we go back and forth, I would take Kasparis here just like I did in our most recent mock. I understand.
Let's do it.
Okay. Let's do it. Yep.
Yeah,
honestly, I kind of want to do this because I also want to see where Fears lands not going here, which I think this is going to end up being fascinating.
Yeah, I am too. And like, we'll go through that once we get to Jeremiah. And So now we have this interesting Toronto situation here where they just have a lot of on-ball players already. Barnes, Ingram, Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, right? I guess like if there's one spot, it would be point or center, like one of the two.
So it's funny. In my notes, I have point guard, question mark, because I'm like, well, they have a lot of on-ball guys, though. Like, we talk all the time about guys needing. So do they actually need, like, do they value a true point guard? And then I also have center, question mark. And then I just put, I don't know. I have no effing clue.
Yeah. So like, here's my problem with, I think Common Malawach makes a ton of sense here. I have asked a lot of people league-wide about, like, the South Sudanese visa situation in the United States in terms of how capable Malawach is of traveling. Like, if he leaves the US, like, is he able to get back in, kind of thing. I think as long as he stays in the US, it's okay. But I don't have any answers on this at this point. And like, yes, you can make the connection between Masai Ujiri and Malawach and the Giants of Africa program and the fact that Malawach was at the academy. But I don't have an answer for you on what Malawach's like current visa status is. And that is what worries me a little bit here. I've asked quite a few people, and I don't, like, this isn't me saying one way or another. I'm just telling you I don't know the way that it works.
Okay, so can I throw out a couple other names? Like, let me throw out one name. We're both very high on Carter Bryant. I think this is a range for Carter Bryant. I mean, we talk about off-ball floor spacing and shooting and all of that. Like, isn't he in play here just to continue to add that type of player to it? Because eventually, in my opinion, they're going to trade out 2 or 3 of these. Emmanuel Quickly, Brandon Ingram. I think Scotty probably stays. I would either go center with Common. He's my highest rated center left. Yeah. Or I would just go like Carter Bryant and just continue to add a, floor spacing forward that is going to play defense and all of that. I would go one or the other.
Is there any chance it's Colin Murray Boyles?
I think Toronto,
big long defense first.
Yes.
Like,
so yes, I could see. I don't like adding that to this mix, but I guess to what I just said, I don't believe this is the mix they're going to have for multiple years moving forward. This is a weird spot. Like they've always been tough for me to figure out.
Let's just give them Malawach and take that off the board.
Okay.
Right. And look, we'll continue to figure out what this is going to be. Like, I'm going to absolutely have to ask people throughout the process about this and write about this at some point potentially on how plausible this is. But let's just go with this for now while we don't have the information on Malawach.
Yep.
Okay. Number 10, Houston Rockets. So this to me is either a Colin Murray Boyles or Carter Bryant spot. And I don't think it's a point guard spot. I've seen people connect point guard here. I can just tell you, they are happy with Fred, and they are really, really happy with Reed Shepherd still. They just took Reed at 3. I do not think they will take a point here. So I think it's probably bigger wing. That is what they've tended to do. They tend to just take best player available. I have Murray Boyles and Bryant right next to each other on my board. I'm totally willing to hear out any conversation here.
It's funny. I do as well. They're right next to. I have Carter Bryant ranked higher. So I think I would default to Bryant, especially with the floor spacing. If you have an overwhelming feeling that Colin Murray Boyles makes more sense in some capacity, I'm cool hearing that. My gut says Carter Bryant's ranked higher on my board, and I like the idea of him being able to shoot and space the floor around everything else they're building. and would rather stay with that ranking?
Murray Boyles fits more of what I think they value from like a feel passing, like playmaking perspective.
Sure.
But
And
at some
defensively,
level, like,
and defensively.
I mean, Carter's also a great defender. So like that's a whole.
Carter's a good CMB's a different level of defender than Carter, right?
They're different defenders to me. Like Colin can play the big role and like potentially, maybe guard up and go small and guard fives. Or you can have Carter Bryant, who's better on like guards and wings, in my opinion, and like really gets into their shit and is like almost a little bit better as, a switchable defender as opposed to Colin.
Okay. I would, my gut is,
if you think Colin is better, we should go. If you think Colin is a better defender, we should go Colin, I think.
I think Colin Murray Boyles is a better all-around defender. I've always been a little bit lower than you on Carter's perimeter movement, like point of attack defense.
Yeah, that's true.
I've been a little bit more. For a while, it was really holding me back. It's like, no, it's going to be okay with the matchups I do think he can take, but I think he has some limitations perimeter in terms of like dropping his hips and really moving with like those like super athletic wings and guards and stuff like that. He does cause disruption. I was like going to say, like bring that up as like a big advantage to Colin Murray Boyles, but like Carter Bryant's a good defensive playmaker as well. I think I would still right now have Colin Murray Boyles as a better defender than Carter Bryant. But I also believe in Carter Bryant's offensive role. I that's more seamless to me to envision than it is for Colin Murray Boyles.
Yep. I'm going to go Murray Boyles here.
Oh, okay.
Sure. I'm just calling it. Because I think it's easier to find the Bryant fit later, in all honesty.
Sure.
And that's not how the draft works, but whatever. Okay. So number 11 here with the Blazers. I think that like basically this is just best player available. They have all of their guards, they have all their wings, they have all their forwards. Like I think they're just taking whoever they like as the best. Right? That's where you're at.
I have shooting. And then agree with everything you said. So like, I would take Carter Bryant here, but
I'm fine with Carter here. I think Carter makes a ton of sense. Honestly,
yeah, that's who I would take.
Carter at number 11 seems totally within his range. Great defender in a way that this organization has valued over the last couple of years with Denny and Kamara. Shooter, which could help them, with lineups and everything, especially if they look to move Jeremy Grant at some point.
Yeah.
I do think they have like a lot of this player type, but like, I don't think Grant is there long-term. So,
and I don't think
they have a lot of every player type too, kind of.
So that's my thing. Like, okay, go get him a center. Like you're going to take Thomas Sorber here whenever, like, and then we have the exact same conversation. You're going to take Jeremiah Fears here where Scoot needs on-ball reps. Shaden takes on-ball reps and Simons is still there. Like, I think you run into the same thing with this team at every position of, well, if you trade Simons or if you trade Grant or if you trade Ayton, well, then now it makes sense. So to me, if that's the caveat with every position, why would I not take a position that does it really bother you to have the archetype of shot maker and good defender at the wing position? And Jeremy Grant's the one that like, I don't know how they're going to end up getting him traded, but like I like the idea of Denny, Tumani, and Carter Bryant, whether you play them together or that's your a rotation of three guys. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I do too. Okay. Number 12, the Chicago Bulls. So like, I just want to keep calling out like the point guard situation, right? So we're assuming that they're going to re-sign Josh Giddey. Like that. Yeah. That's where I'm at. I'm assuming they're keeping Giddey. Fears and Giddey can't play together. Jaeger and Giddey can't play together. I think we're in like the zone of Neek Clifford, Danny Wolf, maybe like a flyer on S and Gay.
Sorber. What about Sorber with Vooch? Vooch is on. Vooch is
I don't
on an
mind that.
expiring. So to be clear, like Fears, Clifford would be the next. Would be like Clifford, Sorber, Wolf would be the guys here for me. Like I will never go against like taking Neat Clifford. I just wonder if like this is a Sorber spot. Just like you have Vooch and Zach Collins both on expiring. I don't know. I think it's worth talking about at least.
I think it's worth talking about too. I think a big makes a ton of sense here. Honestly, I think they're like a real trade up team to try and go get like Maluach or go get somebody like Derek Queen. Honestly, I can see a real world where they try to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind Sorber here. I'm honestly good with Sorber. Measured enormously like we expected. 6'9", 7'6" wingspan. What was the standing reach here? It was like comically massive. It was like 9'1" standing reach. 260 pounds, but like hasn't been able to work out because he's still rehabbing from the foot. Like he's just doing like some basic on court stuff. So yeah, I'm good with Sorber here, honestly. I think his range is pretty wide for what it's worth. Like I think his range is like from around here all the way down to like 22 or 23 or so.
Sure.
But that's the kind of group that we're in at this point.
Yeah, I mean my tier here literally goes 12 to 23 and he's at the top end of it, but like to your point, if people want to go super wing heavy or get into the small guards, he could drop, right? Like if these teams pass on wanting a big man, then he could end up in the low 20s.
Yeah. And someone asked, how do we rate Sorber compared to Maluach? I have them like right next to each other personally on my board, but that's because I'm like a little bit higher on Sorber, a little bit lower on Maluach compared to the consensus. I mean, the combine measurements, like, look, Maluach is still drastically bigger than Sorber. Like, Sorber has a 9'1" standing reach, which is great, but I mean, Maluach is like a 9'6" standing
I say
reach.
9'5"
like
or something.
Comical.
I have them right next to each other as well for what it's worth.
Yeah. Let's go Sorber at 12. Number 13, Atlanta. So Atlanta has Trae Young. Like maybe they look to move Trae Young, but probably not a point guard spot, right?
So the only thing I was going to throw out is like, could you talk yourself into drafting Jeremiah Fears as the backup point guard for a couple years and potentially the heir apparent to Trae Young? The issue is like those two never step on the court together.
That's hard. I mean, that's just like a hard sell to me, honestly.
Yeah.
Like if I'm them, I'm assuming I can get a backup point guard probably at 22.
Sure.
More
That's
than
a good
at
point.
13.
This is a great point that I hadn't really considered. Like I had noticed like all of these all of these guards that I have ranked. I didn't think about the like, hey, especially these teams that have a couple picks, passing on them at the top to get, add Neat Clifford to this room or add Danny Wolf or whatever. And then just saying like, hey, I'll take Jaeger or Jace or whoever later on in the first round. So,
okay. So like real question. They don't really have a big. Like they've Onyeka, who's fine, but like not a difference making big, right? Is this like a Danny Wolf, Asa Newell spot?
Well, so my issue like
or like
Wolf,
an Essengay spot, maybe like someone like that.
Okay, let me throw the inverse to you.
Sure.
Do they think they can get Beringer at 22 ahead of the Pacers at 23?
Maybe, but like, I think that's honestly, like, if you want Beringer, you might just take him here.
So I was going to throw him out here. This is a little rich for me, but then I thought, okay, well, maybe I can get him at 22 if I'm Atlanta. So I am definitely more comfortable maybe going a guard, or I just my instinct is just to continue to load up the wing room with a Nick Clifford. You're losing Karis LeVert,
yeah.
potentially. He's an unrestricted free agent this offseason.
Yeah. I think it's going to be I think it's an easier bet for you to get a guard at 22 than it is to get a big at 22, is what I would answer you. Like if those are the two things you're trying to fill, is like go get a combo guard that can maybe play some point while Trey's out, and then also go get a like big that can potentially be your center of the future. Maybe it's Baron J or Wolf or somebody here, or maybe it's just Nick Clifford here and they fill the big position like in free agency or something.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? Like, because you have Walter Clayton down there too that could come just like.
I don't have a great answer for this, Bryce. Like, so, I think we go.
My issue with Wolf is like he's not the kind of front court guy. Like he's not
with Trey.
Yeah, like it's not like he's a lob threat. Even though I do like his versatility in general. Like I'm trying to envision like what you could do with like him and like what that would look like, him, Jalen, Zach all on the court together. Like is kind of fun. Like when I think of Atlanta Hawks center with Trae Young on the roster, I think of Clint Capella. You know, I think of what Jan Berenger is supposed to be. You know, what Common. So, and this is early for me for Berenger. So,
is it that early for Essengay if we think he's like a play finisher, big kind of guy?
I'm the wrong guy to ask for Essengay here.
But like, so I do have Berenger like slightly ahead of Essengay. But like most people, it feels like Essengay a little bit more. Like where? Yeah, I don't know.
I would take Nick Clifford and just move on.
Let's do it. That sounds easy to me. Let's just take the wing, shooting wing, and go from there. You know, shooting, ball moving, playmaking wing.
Yep,
totally good. Spurs are up now at 14. We have taken Dylan Harper. We have a lot of ball handling. We just need like shooting in some respect to me. Again, like we can't take fears here. Like that's the crazy thing, right?
So I have wing play and shooting. So like, here's where this is interesting part of the draft, Sam, is like, who are the Liam McNeely? And then you go to like Coward and
I was going to say, I know what my name is. I don't know what your name is.
but seriously, like that's what we're talking about, right? Like guys, like everybody else has some sort of floor spacing questions other than like Jace and Walter Clayton Jr., who are just really small, like aren't wings in that way.
Yeah.
Right? It's Liam and Cedric and Will Riley.
Yeah.
Like I think Rasheer Fleming's going to shoot it, but we've had this conversation. So like, God, I love Cedric Coward so much, but Liam would be like the higher player for me.
Do you think that when it really comes down to it, a team is going to pass on a kid that's 6'5" with a 7'2" wingspan that's like athletic and really fluid to take Liam McNeely?
Listen, you know how I feel about him. I feel like I'm waiting for the buzz to catch up on him because I feel like it hasn't yet. Is today
We've been talking about him for a month. Like we can't talk about Cedric Coward more, like, and be realistic about it.
Is today the day that finally like other people, because of the wingspan and all of that?
I hope so. Like the guy's awesome. The guy's so good at basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Danny Wolf is also like both of us have questions with the shooting, but Like, is this a play there? Like,
No, I think that they're more likely to go like Essengay or somebody like that.
okay.
Do you just want to say like screw it and just do Cedric Howard here?
Sure. I love Cedric Howard.
Yeah, let's just put Cedric Howard here, 14. Because I'm going to be honest with you, if we didn't take him at 14, there's a real good shot I was taking him at 15 for Oklahoma City. There's a real good shot of it. So let's do it. For what it's worth, I've Coward at like 21 or so on the mock right now. So like this is not out of the world. This is like not out of the question. And then Oklahoma City, this makes it easy. So I think people will try to connect fears here. Oklahoma connection, obviously like a team that could use some ball handling. I just don't think he's an OKC kind of player. Like they don't really draft guys like this.
And they have Topic in the wings also from last year.
And they have
took
Topic.
a red shirt. I mean, this is
Yeah.
Danny Wolf. Like this is one of the fun ones we like to do.
Yep. Yeah, let's go Danny Wolf here. Big, size, skill. Hard to find bigs that are, able to dribble, pass, shoot potentially. Wolf makes sense. Number 16, Orlando Magic. This is where we can get to fears, I think. So they need ball handling, playmaking, another guy who can like actually dribble and like create shots. I would prefer somebody that I really think could shoot.
Yeah.
But I think Fears' like upside is probably great enough to where this is the reality. But this is kind of what I wanted to talk about with Fears. So, and this goes somewhat for Yakashonis, but like I think Yakashonis is a little bit easier to make swing for some of these teams that have like second picks, because if you want like more backcourt players, you can kind of make that work, right? Like you can go, okay, we're taking Yakashonis and then we're going to take the smaller guard later, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Dallas at 1 was a team that we really liked to potentially take a guard, right? But they moved up to 1. They're going to take Flag. San Antonio just traded for De'Aaron Fox. Philly has Jared McCain and Tyrese Maxey. Charlotte has LaMelo Ball. Utah could use a point guard. I think that Fears' range definitely starts at number 5.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Number 6, Washington. I don't really see the fit with Bub, personally. If they just think Fears is so good that they have to take him, I'll hear it out. But I don't see it. Do you?
No, I don't like it as much.
New Orleans, if they just want like a point guard of the future because DeJounte Murray is out and CJ McCollum is not there long term, I think you can absolutely make a case for Jeremiah Fears at 7. You and I just like Con ahead.
That's what I say. I think that one, if the board falls a little bit different of a way where VJ, Trey, Con are all gone at that point, that could be a Fears team. I would take those guys ahead for New Orleans, but I could see that.
Number 8, Brooklyn, very much on the board, right? Like could definitely take Jeremiah Fears in a team that like, that's what it came down to. But this next group, number 9, Toronto has quickly and a million guys that like to play with the ball in their hands. Houston at number 10 just took Reed Shepherd, still has Fred VanVleet under contract. Number 11, Portland has Scoot Henderson, Shaden Sharp. Number 12, Chicago has Josh Giddey, who they're likely re-signing, Kobe White, et cetera, et cetera. Number 13, Atlanta has Trey Young. Maybe this is the summer where they look to move Trey, but we have no, evidence of that. Number 14, San Antonio has De'Aaron Fox and then might be drafting Dylan Harper at number 2. Oklahoma City, Fears is just not like an Oklahoma City guy, right? So basically from 9 to 15 is kind of a dead zone.
Yeah.
For like a only primary lead guard, right? So I worry a little bit. Like, yes, I think Fears absolutely can go 5, 7, 8. 100%. Like that is absolutely in the cards and like a very real potential outcome here. But if he doesn't go before 8, someone's either going to have to go up to get him or he kind of drops. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you. I mean, it's whenever you're this can happen with these only primary initiators and like certain bigs. Like I think like where we don't see this as much with wings, just based on what we're talking about here. I'm not talking about the Cam Whitmore fall. I'm just talking about like where there can be pockets where guys can't get taken because of current rosters. I don't think that happens as much to wings because they just offer so much versatility. If you're just a primary only on ball guy, this can happen to you depending on how the order of the draft is. If you miss on certain spots, like this happens in the NFL all the time, right? It's like, okay, well, if this guy doesn't get drafted at 2 or 7 or 9 as a left tackle or whatever, quarterback's the easiest one, then how far are they going to drop? Because none of these other teams are going to take a quarterback, like you said, unless somebody decides they want to move up to go get him, right? So if they think 16 is his spot, like, or he's not getting past Orlando, are you a team, whoever, like, what did we do? Like, what if the Nets did want to double down on it, right? And they wanted to move up and do this, because we said that's a possibility. That's why we like Yakichonis there. Unless somebody does that, it seems like 16 is probably the next spot for him.
Like the Nets could easily trade 19. I think they have 19 is the
19.
next one, right?
Yep.
19 and 26 for, could they get up to like 13?
Yeah.
For that, right? Or maybe not 13 because Atlanta has the second pick. Maybe Chicago would do like 19, 26 and something for 12.
Yeah.
Totally something that could work for me.
Sure.
Okay. Number 17, Minnesota. This is where I kind of want to start to zoom through this a little bit quicker. Basically just like not a lead, not like a backcourt guy to me is my only thing here. Lot of different potential outcomes here to me, like Asa Newell, Noah Essengay, I think tracks here a lot. They could go with a center to try and like have somebody long-term with Rudy. I honestly thought a lot about Berenjay here is like a potential answer.
Oh, okay.
Any thoughts?
Of the names you brought up, I would probably go Newell. I have him ranked just a touch higher than Essengay.
Okay. Let's go Asa Newell here at 17. That works for me.
I like
number 18, Washington Wizards. They have taken Derek Queen. Again, like dribble, pass, shoot, process, defend if you can. Like kind of one of those guys to me. This is kind of an Essengay spot to me, even though he can't shoot.
Yeah. So like the other thing I put was like high end talent, pace for them, like where they get out and run. Maybe Essengay can fit there. Again, I'm a little bit lower on him, but
I am too, to be clear.
Just as this seems like a good spot for him in terms of like a projecty. Again, like I think Wizards fans will like what we've done here in terms of like upside type of swings with this draft. So I'm cool with Essengay here.
Okay. Number 19, the Brooklyn Nets here. Nets have taken Yakashonis, and now they have Jaeger on the board. They have Jace Richardson on the board. They have like Saraf. They have Will Wright, like
Traore.
Traore is still here. Is this just Traore?
I mean, you talked to me about it. You texted me the other day about watching one of his games. Like,
yeah,
he's having a strong finish.
Again, like I think he goes higher than this at the end of the day. I think somebody trades in to try and get him. But like, if you told me that the Nets came away from this draft with Traore and Yakashonis, like I'm ecstatic. I'm a Nets fan.
Sure.
This is a huge win. Traore has been awesome recently, back-to-back 20-point games. He's really starting to figure out like how to control the offense a little bit better, how to deal with pressure a little bit better, shooting a little bit more. Traore makes a ton of sense to me here.
Yep.
Okay. Number 20 with the Heat. I like scoring feels like to me, just like the ability to put the ball in the basket. Also, like I wonder if Jaeger is like an interesting fit here.
Huh. Okay.
Like, could you just do like big point guard next to Tyler Hero? But they like to play Hero on the ball a little bit more is my concern there.
Yeah. Interesting. I hadn't thought about them. I think we did. You had done Walter Clayton. I believe that is. I think that's who.
I've mocked that before. That would make sense.
I was looking. Yeah. Jaeger's interesting. I still have McNeely higher here. Jace.
McNeely makes sense because he is like a heat culture guy
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, like super hard worker, very diligent. It seems like Pat Riley would like really vibe with that in a serious way. I'm good with Liam here.
I broke it down the last time we did. Like I believe Liam McNeely is a real shooter. And so like I think he's really going to knock down shots, and I think he's going to be a good team defender. I realize there's some limitations physically with stuff, but like I think this is a good range for McNeely for me.
Yeah, I'm good with Liam here. Okay. Number 21 is the Utah Jazz again. Jazz have taken Trey Johnson. I think this is just Jaeger at this point, right?
Yeah, that was my initial thought too.
Go get a big guard who can create and ball screens.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if Jaeger got past this pick.
Interesting. Yeah.
I mean, look, like the connection here is like Ryan Smith is obviously a, owner of the Utah Jazz, is obviously like very involved with BYU basketball.
Yep.
So I would be surprised if Jaeger got past that pick. Okay. Number 22, the Atlanta Hawks. Now we get to kind of do what we want here. We can go Baron J at 22.
Yep.
Yeah. So big lob catching big from France that would work really well with Trae Young. That's smart to me.
Yep. I like it. Yes. I was just saying, like, if I'm the Pacers, can I find a way to jump this? But anyway.
I would probably try to if I was the Pacers. I agree with you totally. But if you're the Pacers, you're now sitting here at 20, what is this, 25, 23. And I don't know, there's a number of different guys here. They tend to go bigger, longer, or like, somewhat defensively conscious, but like, I don't know, but like, if you think Will Riley can shoot here, Will Riley is a good pick for them.
Well, so that's what I was going to say is like, I have the guards, Saroff, Jace, Clayton Jr. here. And then I get into the Pinda, Will Riley, Fleming, Hugo Gonzalez, wing forwards.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, it's who do you think is the best out of those grouping of wing forwards, of the Flemings, the Pindas, the Rileys, the Gonzalez?
So I probably like Noah Penda better than all of those guys, but I think Will Riley is a better bet to shoot. And I think that's honestly what's most important within this scheme.
Yeah.
So I would say probably Riley for me in this spot.
Yeah, and he would be interesting in like this up-tempo, like grab and go, like he has some of those skills. I'm cool with this as a landing spot for Will Riley.
And then like any backup centers, like are you looking at all at reaching at like Kalkbrenner, Broom, like any of these guys?
Yeah, you could talk me into it, I guess.
Could you do Fleming as a center in this scheme?
Like almost the OB role?
Yeah, it doesn't really work because they've tried OB at center and it doesn't quite track.
I'm a little lower on Kalkbrenner and some of those.
Yeah.
Some of those bigs. I would not entertain that, to be honest with you. I would just go with the wing.
Okay. You want to go Will Riley?
Sure.
Okay. 24 or no, 24. Yep. The Oklahoma City Thunder. They have taken Danny Wolf. I mean, guys that like tick the Thunder boxes. I mean, that are available. I mean, just like, is there any chance they just take like a knockdown shooter in Clayton? Probably not. Like Noah Penda, I think ticks their boxes in a big way.
That was the name that jumped out to me.
big, can like dribble and pass for sure. Shooting is a question mark, but like got better this year. Defensively, very good. I think Penda's probably the name. I also think they move either 15 or 24
Yeah.
because I think that they just have so many bodies
There's
on
not
this
enough
roster.
Yeah, I agree. They're not making both of these, in my opinion. Like they find somebody that they can, push this out into the future. But
That's my read. Okay, so Noah Penda here at 24. 25, we're back to the Magic. They have taken Fears. Do we just take Walter Clayton here? Because I think that's like another name I considered at 15.
yeah, sure.
Clayton at 15 like would have made some sense to me, but like they need more shooting and just like playmaking and ball handling to me.
Yep.
Okay. 26. So we have taken multiple guards here with the Brooklyn Nets, and both of these picks are up. These 26 and 27 are Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Does this take Saraf and Richardson off the board? And then is it like
I would
Rasheer
take
Fleming?
I would take Fleming with one of these for sure.
Okay, let's knock that out. Fleming
Okay.
at 26.
Then it comes down to
27?
like, do you go to the guard well again? I'm leaning towards no, which then it's like Hugo Gonzalez, Janai Broom, Yaxel Lindenborg, those type of guys.
Yeah, I think we go Hugo here because, like, honestly, like, I wonder if you could stash one of these guys because you probably don't want 4 rookies. Like,
Yeah.
maybe that gives them a little bit more flexibility. I don't know that it would necessarily. But Hugo's the wing, athletic in a way that, Yakashonis isn't. Traore is fairly athletic, but like more of a controlled pace, right? Yeah, let's go Hugo, I think.
Okay.
28 is the Boston Celtics. We'll talk about a thing that just happened with the Celtics here in a minute.
So
I think
like,
you could sell me on Jace.
so
here.
I was going to say Jace or Janai.
I think you could sell me on Jace here.
Okay.
Just the key is shooting. Like the scheme needs shooting.
Sure.
In theory,
Yeah.
depending on what just happened here. Let's go Jace at 28. 29 is the Suns. I mean, it'd be amazing if we had Jace to the Suns, given the Michigan State connection. Like Jace will not get past 29. I feel good about that. Like Saraf makes sense here to me. I think Phylon makes sense here. Any thoughts on those two?
Yeah.
Go get a lead guard.
Saraf is the best player on my board. I'm just like trying to make sure like there's not an obvious guy below that makes more sense. Like, yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah. So we'll go Saraf here. And then go the Clippers here. Phylon just feels Clippers-y to me, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Super tough, athletic guard. Just makes a lot of sense. Okay. So we're done here. Flag at 1, Harper 2, Bailey 3, Edgecombe 4, Johnson 5, Derek Queen 6, Con Knipple 7, Kasparis 8, Common Maluach 9, Murray Boyles 10, Carter Bryant 11, Thomas Sorber 12, Nick Clifford 13, Cedric Coward gets the big bump up to 14, Danny Wolf 15, Jeremiah Fears drops a bit to 16. We talked about why that was. Asa Newell 17, Noah Essengay 18, Nolan Traore 19. I think that's a big drop. I think both Fears and Traore go higher than 16 and 19. I just think it involves trades and teams like moving up to do so. 21 Demon. I think he has a chance to go higher, but I'm not sure what that would look like yet. Baron J 22, Riley 23, Noah Penda 24. Walter Clayton 25, Rasheer Fleming 26, Hugo Gonzalez 27, Jace Richardson 28, Ben Surhoff 29, LeBaron Phylon 30, and we just got a text from GMAC in the group chat, which is how we know that the Knicks game is over. Okay. So the last thing that I just want to note here, we're going to do a show tomorrow night to talk about the playoffs. This is lottery night, so we're going to do lottery always. But Jason Tatum did just like go down with like what looks like a significant injury. We don't have details. He grabbed his ankle in a concerning way that often always brings up Achilles questions.
Yeah, I was just
we
watching
hope
the
that
video, so
we hope it's not that. Obviously, I mean that is the absolute key. Is that we really, really hope that it's not the Achilles. That would be just terrifying. It was also like very scary, like no bump, no anything, and he just went down. I mean, that would really change things, obviously, moving forward. I don't know what to expect.
yeah. I was just I don't want to speak on it right now because I literally just pulled up the video and watched it a little bit. It just that would suck. I hate injuries all around, no matter what team, who, whatever. It's not fun for anybody. So hoping that it's not what it looks like it could potentially be.
And as much as anything, this has been a playoffs again that is, ravaged a bit by injury, unfortunately. And I do think that like this is a automatic, statement toward, hey, if you have a shot to go for it, go for it.
Yeah.
Like the New York Knicks, we might be looking at a Knicks Pacers Eastern Conference Finals. And if you would have said that even going into the playoffs, given where the Cavs and the Cavs and Celtics looked going into the playoffs, I think you would have been laughed out of the room.
And where
Just
the
point
Knicks
blank.
were at going into the playoffs. Like, I mean, even our resident Knicks guy, GMAC, wasn't like crazy. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it wasn't crazy confidence that I think he thought they were going to beat the Pistons, but it wasn't super confident they were going to beat the Celtics. And, they might get them in 5. And, most of this, here's the thing. If he's injured seriously, again, hopefully not, and whatever there, but they were going to be up 3-1 with him being healthy. Like I know this happened late in the game, but it looked like Knicks I haven't watched a second of it, but it looked like New York had taken control already. And so that was a somewhat healthy Celtics team. The Knicks were going to take a 3-1 lead and now have on top of it now with this injury included. So and the Pacers just, goodness gracious, blew the Cavs out the other night. So it's been a crazy playoffs.
So here's like another thing, right? So Cooper Flag is going west, right? Western Conference.
Yep.
Jason Tatum, like we'll see what this looks like, right? We hope it's not what we think it is, but if he's out for next year, I mean, what are the Celtics, right? If he's out for next year, I would imagine that the Celtics ownership is not paying like the luxury tax that they currently are paying right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's then like the Knicks, the Cavs, and the Pacers are really like your only 3 unless the Sixers really bounce back. Like maybe this is where like Embiid really like gets rolling here, right? Like that could be a thing that like really helps, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, man. This is, we're going to see what it looks like, Bryce, because hopefully we'll know by the time we record tomorrow. We will be recording tomorrow after games. It might be Andrew and I, might be Bryce and I. We'll figure it out. Yeah, I mean, best wishes to Jason Tatum. We're really hoping that.
Sorry, I'm like reading Twitter to see what people are saying and all of that. The biggest thing is it keeps saying MRI tomorrow. Doesn't sound like we're going to get, I want to say this the right way. We got the Damian Lillard news differently. It doesn't sound like that's going to be the situation here. If that's what it is, it sounds like it'll be tomorrow MRI confirms, or hopefully does not confirm and it's something else. So sounds like it's going to be tomorrow before we get any sort of confirmation on anything.
Yeah. Okay. Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah. Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky, the Substack. I will, even with all of this, I will have a video breakdown of a Knicks win tomorrow over on Knicks Film School. I haven't watched the game yet. I will watch it tomorrow. I will find something to break down there. So find that on the Knicks Film School YouTube channel under videos. Pistons Pulse podcast if you want Pistons content. Otherwise, Game Theory podcast right here with the Sam Vecenie.
Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. I have a mock draft up. That is where you can find all of my projections at this point for what this looks like here moving forward. We will be back tomorrow night for sure to talk about the NBA playoffs. We will talk through all of the game 4s that will have occurred, and we'll be into game 5s at that point, right, Bryce? So,
yep.
Yeah, we'll be able to talk a little bit about that. Truly, like, maybe a night that like completely changed the NBA.
Yeah,
is what we're looking at between Cooper Flag going to Dallas and then whatever is going on with Jason Tatum. Crazy night to be doing this all through. We will watch the Knicks game and talk through all of that. Knicks are up 3-1 now, and that's where we're at. Until next time, we'll talk soon.